Hi, Mayank. Thank you for making it to this uh, latest edition of Hiring Diaries. Hiring Diaries is a place where we talk to hiring professionals in the industry and try to share tribalized knowledge with the rest of the industry. I'm Sud, CEO and co founder of impress.ai. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me, Sud.
So, Mayank, let's start by looking at your journey. You're the CEO of IHRP. What's brought you to this point in your career?
Well, I've been a HR professional all my career, and it is a kind of a dream job, actually, IHRP. Because at IHRP, we are involved in upskilling the HR profession. As we know, the profession is faced with a number of challenges. The last 2 over years has proven that the world of work is changing, and will continue to change. In fact, the change is accelerating. So HR needs to keep up, and this is what I've spent a career working in HR, so I understand some of the pains that HR goes through. We are caught sometimes in between what the employers, uh, you know, uh, expect and what workers need and wants are. And so it is a balancing act in HR, and sometimes without the skills, without the right competencies, without the technology to help, it is very difficult. And so I think IHRP gives me an opportunity to leverage on my experience, and then help the community understand what they need to do, and what how they need to develop their own skills, as well as their organizational capabilities to navigate through these changes.
Now, I think people have talked enough about the challenges from remote working, how that's changed the culture forever. But where do you think things are now? Have people gotten used to dealing with these challenges, or there's still a lot of work to be done?
I think we're still in early days, and a lot of companies, organizations are still finding their footing in this space. I think it'll take a while for the dust to settle. There is still a number of quite a bit of churn in the market as well. And we've heard the great resignation, and the great disruption, whatever you want to call it, right? I think we're still in the midst of that. So it is, um, organizations need to find their own sweet spot, I feel. I think no one formula is going to work for everyone, right? So in some organizations that I've encountered, where certainly I think the culture of remote working was already there even pre-COVID. So I think in those organizations, primarily organizations which are global in nature, distributed workforce, service, primarily service in nature. So that's kind of something. It's just water off the back. It's not a big change, but certainly companies that need to have a localized presence, or even say a manufacturing operation or a service operation, that you need to have centers, face to face, in person operations, then I think it's difficult. And this is where you will have one part of your workforce that needs to be um, at work in person, and another part that would demand, or would you would have extended periods of work from home. Then how do you ensure parity? How do you ensure fairness, right, in treatment? So I think some companies are trying to provide flexibility on both sides in different ways, but that's only going to go so far. I think in the long term, there will have to be fundamental questions around how we pay people, how we measure performance, how we look at talent in general, and what that means for different groups of individuals in the company.
Do you have any good examples or best practices that you've noticed from progressive organizations who have been able to get ahead of this oncoming challenge in how to treat people fairly when some are working from the office, some are working remotely?
The starting point is culture, right? What exactly are you trying to achieve, and how is that linked to purpose and strategy, right? And if companies start there, and I know a major bank in Singapore that's pretty much uh, able to kind of articulate very clear a clear set of strategy, um, purpose, and then down to culture and even behaviors, right? Then I think that particular organization has done much more in terms of progressing, in terms of empowering their teams. Because once you create the right culture and sense of purpose is clear, then I think you're in a better position to empower your teams and empower your managers to make the right decisions with respect to work from wherever, right? So I think how you do that depends on organization to organization, and in this case, the bank has actually brought teams from different areas together, particularly where they need to deliver the same service. They have to come together to deliver a service. So it's a question of how do you break silos down, and as long as you define those teams, you make accountability clear, you have empowerment so that the teams know what they are responsible for, how they need to work with others in order to get things done, then I think you're in a better position regardless of practice, right?
Have you been able to see any impact on reduction in resignations at companies through this kind of implementation or this kind of framework?
Yeah, I think it's yeah, I think no company is immune to this. I think we're going to see a lot more, continuing to see a lot more turnover, and I don't see this as going away, right? I think there are a number of reasons for that. It's certainly, I think technology is moved significantly, so there's a lot of impact on jobs, right? Jobs are changing tremendously, and employees are looking at ways to ensure their employability as well. So they are moving into areas where there is growth, not just for the organizations, but there is also growth for themselves, right? So I see that that's still taking place. Now, how is what we have just talked about, right? The sense, the ability for an organization to define clearly its culture, its purpose, its mission. How is that going to impact the, the turnover? Certainly, I think it cannot hurt, right? It is a strong culture is a tremendous value in keeping talents, attracting talents and keeping them intact. It doesn't hurt, and this is something. But the impact is something that will we have to see over time. I don't see a lot of studies right now on what clear impact it has, and that's one of the challenges in when you talk about HR, the return on investment in HR type of initiatives, right? You don't see a clear line of sight sometimes, uh, at least not in the short term, right? But over time, I think we need to believe, right, that there will be certainly uh, organizations that have strong culture. There is better business performance, better value back to shareholders, and so on. So that is something the data is already out there, but it takes time.
Definitely. Do you sometimes feel like there are two different sections of employees? One set where they're able to change jobs relatively easily. If they're dissatisfied with their job, they find another one, and that's maybe where a lot of the great resignation is coming from. But maybe there is another section of workers who actually struggle to position themselves correctly in the market to find a fit for themselves, find the next role, even if they're dissatisfied. Do you feel like sometimes we don't talk enough about the latter? And do you feel like things have gotten even harder for that section of workers?
Um, Certainly, I think there is a when it comes to the ability to learn, the ability to be, your ability to navigate through challenges. There is a range, right? And there will be individuals that do better than others, right? And certainly, I think those who do better, they take ownership. They've taken over ownership for the skills that they have, and what have clear goals in mind, and work towards that. But I think there are also opportunities that we have, that we if uh, organizations, if professional bodies like us provide the right support, and government, in the case of Singapore, is doing a great job here, where we do provide the right support to facilitate some of these development, to facilitate mid-career transitions, to provide some form of safety net, right? As well as lower the risk of companies taking on some of these workers who may not have the right experience to begin with, right? But if government, uh, professional bodies can help organizations take on and manage some of this risk, then I think we have a better chance. And at the same time, providing the right support to organizations where they are trying to understand, so if I have individuals that need to transition, right, to new areas, how can I manage my risk, right? How can I provide the support, and what are the opportunities for me to kind of make those kind of decisions, whether I buy those skills from outside, or I build those competencies myself. So that buy build decision is something companies struggle with. But the more support they get from governments, from professional bodies like us, the easier it is to navigate through these challenges.
How has the work that IHRP does had to change over the past 2 years as external factors have changed?
Uh, thanks for the question. I think I've reflected on this over the last few months, right? Certainly, I think the HR landscape has significantly changed over the last 2 years. So, um, you know, quite quite clearly, we need to respond, right? And I think when I look at some of these changes, one is that there's a lot more focus, attention on people issues within companies, right? So I think there is an opportunity now for HR. In the past, there was a difficulty um, for HR to make its voice heard, to have a say, if you like, in terms of how things are done. And But there is now a lot more opportunities at in many organizations for HR to kind of step forward and say that yes, that I have a voice or I have an input in terms of whether it's in terms of business strategy, in terms of ensuring business continuity, or ensuring that we have the talents, not just today but in the future as well. So I think there is that big change that's taking place. The stage is there. The question is, will HR be able to perform? And this is something we, as a professional body, we are making sure that we double up our efforts to work with our training providers and understand what those skills uh, are needed, right? Particularly around business partnering, particularly around workforce planning, job redesign. These are the areas that companies will really need to master in order to transform, right? And HR has to be at the front and center of this, right? So I think that's the big change. So as a professional body, we are going to double down on our efforts, not just on the individual side to ensure that individuals upskill, but also help organizations in terms of how they are transforming. What does it mean for workers? What does it mean for their processes? And how are HR professionals able to help those companies navigate through that change, right? Manage that change over time, right? So that's one big thing that's taking place. The other area is that I think the role of technology in a lot of what HR is doing, that's just going to escalate tremendously, right? And then how do we work much closer with the ecosystem to ensure that first the technology, certainly there is a range, and not all companies are able to access all kinds of products. So there is a selection process that we have to educate companies in terms of what works for them, right? At their stage of development. So how do we provide those playbooks, if you like? If you have a need for you to be more efficient, then where do you start, right? So providing those starting points, a step-by-step approach in order for companies to adopt technology much quicker. And this is where we hope to work with the ecosystem as well. There's certainly a number of schemes available. In Singapore, we are fortunate in that way. So funding, at least initially, we will be able to support. Government does support quite a bit of funding in the interest of productivity, in the interest of efficiency. The question then is how do we ensure that this is sustainable over time, and there is a roadmap, right? It's not just putting in just just starting out, right? There has to be a roadmap to say how do I then what's the next phase going to look like, then how do I ensure that there is that return on my investment that is providing me with the justification for additional investments, right? So I think that's also something we're going to work quite intensely over the next few months, because that's the game changer out there. I see a lot more investments coming into HR tech. Certainly, when you see the VC interest, it's a lot more activity in the area
Yeah.
of HR tech. So we're going to see more players. We're going to see more function, more areas within HR, including mental well-being, to also
Of
have
course.
a technology support, right? Through AI, through ability to better pulse um, the sentiment of employees. So there is tremendous opportunity here. We just have to provide the right roadmap to companies to adopt and to sustain that effort.
One observation has been that a lot of companies almost get distracted by technology and try to see it as a hit the switch kind of way to solve a ton of problems, while they forget that you need to build the foundation first and architect the jobs, define the competencies, define the skills, and write proper job descriptions. Because technology will operate only on top of those. It doesn't help you really define the jobs that you need to have in the company. So we we feel like a lot of companies where the HR function is starting to develop, it's in a more early stages of evolution, forget to do those basics. Do you have a similar view, or do you think that that's not the case?
No, I think you're spot on. There's nothing, no substitute for your basic processes or 101s, right? And that has to be in place. And technology is no magic bullet, right? It's not going to solve your problems overnight, particularly if you don't have the basics right. And that's the reason why there is a lot of opportunities for us to work with the technology providers to ensure that at least at the baseline there is something that is in place, right? And if it's not, then how do we work with the organization, with the HR team, or even if there is no HR team, with the organization to uplift their capabilities in the people space, right? Technology is not going to help you there, right? It is really used to sitting down, looking through um, the landscape, looking at what your needs are, and getting some help to kind of say, asking the right questions in order to kind of make sure that you have the right processes in place. Once you have that, yes, then the technology is can be a game changer for you, right?
Yeah,
But you can't run away from basics.
yeah. I think that's great advice. Um, the the other thing that is coming to my mind when we were talking about flexible work and how to have more engaged employees. I was just reading in the Wall Street Journal this morning that um, employees are kind of giving up on work friendships. I don't know how true that is in Singapore's context, because this article is based on observations in the US. But um, people so the article talks about the fact that work relationships, or having a best friend at work, almost predicts how engaged the employee is and how long they work at the company. Do you feel like that is starting to happen in Singapore as well? Are we giving up, or are we starting to lose work friendships?
I think we divide our lives into different parts, um, and thank goodness for that, right? Because I think once you have blurring, and that's kind of where sometimes the stress comes in, and we've seen that, right? We've worked from home, so I think there is a lot of value to having clearly compartmentalized, um, uh, you know. Uh, how you spend your time, right? And certainly, I think there is a part of you that's at work, right? And there's a part of you that's social, and there's part that's personal as well, right? So
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to mix up, the all three. I don't think it's very healthy, and that's kind of the way I think. And I think the work part, that doesn't mean that the work part there's no social, right? Certainly, I think
Exactly.
be as enriching, as meaningful, the relationships you have at work. So there is no kind of it's not to say that you just you're someone different at work. You can be yourself, but at the same time very clear that this is work, and the relationships you have at work aren't necessarily the same as the relationships you have socially, with your buddies, right? So I think that's kind of the way I look at it. I don't see um, a more disengaged workforce from people sort of thinking that maybe there is a lot more value from social the social relationships. I don't think that means that you're more disengaged at work. I don't see the relationship. In fact, I think the more socially engaged you are outside of work, you bring that those kind of opportunities, the relationship building skills and ability for you to understand a diverse group of having a diverse group of friends, being inclusive in terms of your thoughts and so on. You bring those at work, right? And so it actually strengthens your ability to equally have those meaningful relationships at work. So I think it's complementary. I don't see that as something we should be afraid of.
I think that's a very useful way to look at it, because if you have a healthy social life, you have hobbies with your friends, you start to bring that positive energy to work as well. But I think that's a very useful perspective. Do you have a view on, certain companies are starting to require people to come back to work because people have gotten used to working from home? Some are making it compulsory, some are, penalizing employees. Do you have thoughts on what the right way is when companies actually want people to come back to work? Do you think they should impose it, or do you think they should leave it up to the choice?
I think it's once again there is no right or wrong answer here, but I think work along with your employees would probably be the best way, right? Get them to understand a bigger picture in terms of what does that mean for the overall organization. You may have the privilege of working from the office, but maybe a colleague who's manning a shop floor, right? A supervisor looking after a line, he doesn't have that privilege, right? So I think having that sense that we are all in it together, and certainly I think if you if you do have an opportunity to kind of make sure that those silos um, don't become a hindrance, right? So let's make sure people see the other side, look at things from the other side of the fence, right? So I think that's important. Um, so work along with your employees is one of the things that I would recommend. The other thing I would recommend is a clear, transparent set of policies and principles. I think that's something there has to be transparency, right? You need to kind of um, make a stand, right? One way or the other. I think I've come across many companies that sometimes tend not to uh, be come down um, on one side of or the other, right? And then you kind of are in a kind of a gray zone, right? And I think that's not very healthy because then you leave it to the interpretation of of employees, of supervisors, and then it just creates distrust. It
Yeah.
creates an opportunity to kind of have disagreements and discontentment, right? So a clear set of policies, one way or other. Elon Musk, made a stand, right or wrong, but he made a stand, right? So I think that's not something I would advocate in content, but certainly as a principle, as a leader, you need to have a clearly articulated stand on this, and make it known and communicated across the organization.
Definitely agree on clarity of communication, whichever way it is, so that people can make their own choices and decide whether this is the right organization for them, this is the right culture for them. Maybe the final question on if companies are looking for guidance, if HRs are looking for guidance, what is the best way to reach out to IHRP?
Well, we are on social media. We are very active. We are also on. We do conduct a number of events. So do sign up for events. A lot of these events are open events, not exclusively for our members. So do reach out to us. We're beginning to have more in-person events over the last few months, which is a refreshing change. So really happy to have people come up and just know more about us. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram and Facebook. So drop us a note. So we'll be very happy to support. Whether you're HR or you're not in HR, or you're in an organization, you're in a startup, you just need help. Uh, we are there for you.
Glad to hear how approachable IHRP is. It's been great talking to you, Mayank. Thanks for all the great advice. I think this went very well. We covered a range of topics, and I'm sure that our viewers will appreciate the advice you've given today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sud, for the opportunity, and you guys are doing great out there. I really appreciate the thought leadership that you're bringing to HR, and looking forward to working closely with you guys. To advance the HR profession to even greater heights.
Very much appreciate your kind words.